NHS dentistry isn't just struggling, it's fully broken. As a dentist working in the system, I have seen firsthand how it's affecting patients and professionals. From the funding models being crazy to the culture of fear and burnout, there are 10 critical reasons why NHS dentistry is crumbling. Hey guys, if you're new here, my name is Komal and I am a dentist based in the UK. In this video, I want to dive into a really critical issue, and it is why NHS dentistry is broken. So let's get straight into it. Reason number one is the funding. Each NHS dental practice receives funding from the government based on needs of the local population in the form of a UDA target. So a UDA is units of dental activity. For example, a practice in Northwest London will receive a UDA target of, let's say, 5,000 at £30 a UDA. That means their capacity for treatment is limited to £150,000 a year. This funding has to cover everything from staff costs, including the dentist's pay, to overhead costs, to just everyday running of the practice. What I am saying is that there is a limit put on how much NHS dentistry each practice can provide. And this limit is put there by the government. It's not put there by the practice or the individual dentist. And money that patients pay when visiting an NHS dentist goes directly to the government as a sort of tax, and it doesn't go straight to the practice or to the dentist. Number two is the rising patient fees. So despite rising patient fees, NHS dental practices rarely receive any additional funding from the government to provide more NHS care. Instead, patients are basically subsidising a significant portion of theirs and other people's treatment costs. This means that patients are paying more each year, but for probably the same or even a lower level of care. Number three is targets and clawbacks. NHS dental practices have to meet their UDA targets or they face financial repercussions. If a practice is underachieving and not meeting their UDA target, there is a risk of losing funding and they may not receive more funding or the same funding again in the next year. This is known as a clawback and can be kind of a fine that the practice faces. So some practices do have a really high UDA target, which means they have the capacity to see more NHS patients, but unfortunately they don't have an NHS dentist working for them. It could be due to reasons like immigration laws since Brexit. There's not enough dentists to actually work in the NHS. Another reason could be undesired location. People don't want to live in a certain area. They don't want to work in a certain area. And the other reason could be that dentists are just quite underpaid and undervalued in the NHS, and they find they're just better off or more valued in a private practice. The opposite is overachieving. If a practice is exceeding its target, it's actually penalised for that as well. There's no extra funding given to see patients. Even if the practice has a capacity to see more NHS patients, it can't because NHS won't fund it. So when this happens, dentists are encouraged to take unpaid leave to avoid overachieving on the targets, even if they have the capacity to see more patients and have the capacity to come to work and be an NHS dentist. This creates a system where practices are stuck in a cycle, unable to adjust to patient load effectively. I hope this explains why you might hear that an NHS practice is not taking on new NHS patients at the moment and that there's a waiting list, but they will be able to take you on as a private patient straight away. Number four is the units of dental activity, as I mentioned before. As I said, this practice in Northwest London has a target of 5,000 UDAs at £30. How is a dentist actually paid? The dentist pay is varied from practice to practice, and dentists and practice owners kind of negotiate their pay and their target. So for example, a dentist at this practice might have a target of 3,000 UDAs paid at £10 per UDA, which means that the most they can make from doing NHS dentistry at this practice is £30,000. This is why you might find that many dentists have multiple jobs with multiple UDA rates or targets, or you might find that dentists are offering private treatments that are independent to the NHS if they have met their targets or if they want to provide a certain treatment like cosmetic work that isn't covered on the NHS. You can see how the NHS UDAs work on the screen just here. So the problem with all of this is that the time and effort required for these treatments can vary drastically, but the UDAs haven't changed until very recently. Comment below if you want me to elaborate more on this because it's quite a lengthy topic. Let's just discuss it briefly. For example, a root canal might take 2 hours, but it's compensated with the same 3 UDAs as a simple filling that takes 30 minutes. Or one patient, you've been seeing them regularly for years, they need a premolar root canal, so that's 5 UDAs, versus a new patient who hasn't been to see the dentist in 10 plus years, needs periodontal treatment, needs 5 fillings, and needs 2 extractions. You will be compensated with the same 5 UDAs. Or a patient is grinding their teeth and they need a mouth guard versus a patient that might need 3 fillings, 2 extractions and a denture, which might take up to 6 30-minute appointments. Oh, and the patient's forgotten to attend 2 of their appointments, so now let's make that 8 appointments. The dentist will be compensated for 12 UDAs, and let's not forget that the dentist needs to pay 50% of the lab bills. So that makes it 12 UDAs minus the cost of making a denture, which let's say is £60, and the dentist is paid £60 over 8 appointments. And that is why loads of dentists are fed up. It just doesn't make sense how the system is working. Number 5 is waiting time. So when a new patient finally gets an appointment, they often have multiple dental issues that need attention. However, as explained in the previous point, dentists are only paid for 1 course of treatment per person, even if there are multiple problems to fix. Because of this, dentists have to prioritize which issues they want to address first. They can't get paid for treating everything at once, so they spread out the treatment over a few courses. And the gap between each course of treatment has to be a minimum of 2 months, according to the NHS rules. This means that a patient might have to wait months between their visits to continue their treatment. And I will link a document below that is going to explain how that works. But anyway, this delay is going to affect everyone, right? In short, the combination of the high demand and the way the funding system works just creates a bit of a bottleneck. This leads to longer wait times for new and existing patients, and it can result in everyone having worse dental health over time. So again, it's a shame. Number 6 is rewarding bad behaviour. So the current system can be seen to be rewarding bad behaviour. The uniform pricing structure means that patients with several cavities get treated in the same price as a patient with 1 cavity. This means that both patients essentially pay the same amount for their care, despite the significant difference in the complexity or the extent of their dental problems. Because the system treats all dental issues with the same pricing model, there is little financial incentive for patients to maintain good oral hygiene or to address their dental problems early. If a patient can get treatment for multiple issues at the same cost as a single issue, there's no immediate benefit to preventing those issues from occurring in the first place. Number 7 is that NHS Dentistry is just really undervalued. This issue is especially noticeable with the high number of missed appointments that dental practices experience. When a patient books a slot and fails to show up, it wastes valuable time and resources that could have been used to help another patient in need. What's more is that dentists and practices don't receive any compensation when a patient misses their appointment, whether it's a brief 20-minute checkup or a more involved 2-hour treatment slot. In private dentistry, deposits are often required to secure your appointments, which encourages patients to actually attend their visits or to cancel in advance. Since this practice isn't implemented throughout the whole of the NHS, whether it be dentistry, GP practices, hospitals, the lack of appreciation for NHS dentistry and the NHS in general just continues to persist and negatively impacts the NHS. I've seen this several times where we may have had to turn away patients that require urgent care because our diary is just full. And then on that same day, there will be like 3, 4, 5 patients that have failed to attend their appointments. No heads up, just forgot, or they didn't want to come. Like I said, undervalued, underappreciated, and just unfair. Okay, it's taken me so long to talk about this, it's literally getting dark. So number 8 is limited preventative care. The current NHS funding model emphasises reactive treatment rather than preventative care. Most treatments provided under the NHS are focused on addressing existing dental problems rather than preventing them from occurring in the first place. Preventative measures like dental hygiene education, fluoride treatments, or regular dental checkups receive a limited emphasis and funding. This creates a cycle where patients often only seek care when they already have significant dental issues. As a result, dental health can deteriorate more rapidly, leading to more complex and costly treatments in the long run. The lack of preventative care not only affects the patient outcomes, but also puts a strain on the system and increased costs and patient wait times. Number 9 is the limited comprehensive care. So many NHS dentists do offer private treatments as an alternative to basic NHS care. This involves more advanced or elective treatments such as cosmetic procedures and complex treatments like periodontal surgery, full mouth rehabilitation, dental implants, etc. Private care essentially allows dentists to provide a broader, more complex range of services. This dual system really creates a disconnect between what patients expect and what the NHS can realistically provide. Patients often expect all of their dental needs to be met under the NHS without understanding the financial and logistical constraints involved. However, the NHS also mentions that every treatment can be provided on the NHS. It fails to explain that there are so many hurdles and hoops you have to jump through to even qualify for that kind of treatment. So when a dentist recommends private treatment due to NHS limitations, patients may feel frustrated or perceive it as unfair. This can lead to many difficult conversations with patients who may not understand why certain treatments are only available privately, or why some procedures can't be performed within the NHS framework, or if they can, the patient must go through a vigorous referral process. It's all just a bit complicated, and to be honest, I never thought going into dentistry there would be so much confusion in the care that I can provide. I was never taught that, and yeah, it just sucks a little bit. If I do provide the care, then I am out of pocket and I'm paying myself to provide the care to the patient, even though that's definitely what they deserve and what they should have. It just doesn't work. And it's just very hard to explain that or even understand it myself. Why is this way? Or why is it I can do this, but I can't do that? I think the change just needs to be made on a bigger scale. It's not limited to the practice I work in or me as a dentist. There are higher powers out there telling us what to do. And lastly is the inequality in access. The gap between NHS and private dental care highlights a significant inequality. Firstly, there's a disparity in care. For those who can afford private dental care, receive a wider range of treatments and a higher quality of services. NHS patients face limitations that they are sometimes not even aware of, because that's just the default route in the UK. NHS is always just the route that people take without realising that there is better care out there. And it may not even be that expensive. I mean, it's not going to be free like some services in the NHS, but that leads me on to insurance culture. So many countries actually use insurance-based models to address the disparities that I talked about. For instance, in Germany or Switzerland, dental insurance helps to cover a broad range of treatments, thus improving the access and reducing out-of-pocket costs from the patient themselves. I feel like adopting an insurance model in the UK could enhance access to dental care and promote preventative treatments and reduce health inequalities by providing more options for various income levels. This is actually available throughout many dental practices in the UK, but not many people are aware of it. And again, it's because NHS is the only thing we know. And this leads me on to the lack of education. So many people believe that it's impossible to find a dentist in the UK, or that it's too expensive if it's not an NHS dentist. As a result, many people will delay their treatment for something minor, like a simple cavity that costs £100 to £200 to fix, because they can't find an NHS dentist. This delay can cause the problem to worsen, eventually requiring much more extensive treatment and expensive treatment, such as a root canal or a crown, which can cost thousands. Some people may even travel to other countries to receive dentistry that is really not suitable for them, but they do it because the initial price tag looks cheaper, without considering the costs throughout their lifetime. It's going to be incomprehensible. If the public was educated about their options, such as insurance, finance, and how dental diseases can just be prevented or how they progress, a lot of this could be avoided. But I guess the whole world is facing this issue, and large companies don't make money from preventing diseases, right? They make money by treating diseases. But don't get me started on that one. So there you have it. The NHS dental system is struggling due to the inadequate funding, the unrealistic targets, and undervaluing of care, and the lack of focus on prevention. These issues have built up year on year and contributed to disease prevalence, longer waiting times, and a general decline in the quality of care. I hope this video gives you an insight into the problems with NHS dentistry. This is why I only work part-time in the system. I wish I could dedicate more of my time to NHS dentistry, but it would be at the expense of my own mental health and my own ethics. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.